How do you respond to people who say that you shouldn't be a bishop because of your gender?
I think there have been times when I have felt perhaps intimidated or have immediately felt, oh, I'm not as good as you are, particularly when you've stepped into a role. I think when I was first an archdeacon and I was working in a staff team of all men, and it wasn't that in lots of situations it wasn't that men were putting me down, but I felt almost apologetic for being there. How can we respect one another? And that can sound, quite cliched, but actually, what does it mean to respect one another? It means that I actually want to look at you and think, well, God's made you in God's image, and God's made me in God's image, and we're different. It's not that God has made you a little bit more like God. You're a little bit more in God's image than I am. No, God's made men and women, boys and girls, in the image of God. I might be quite strong and challenging. I think Jesus was quite strong and challenging when he said to people, you whitewash tombs, or, you brood of vipers, he said. But actually, what's the motivation in my heart? And if the motivation is about saying, actually, I'm passionate about that we're equal, then I will speak out. And I think one of the things I need to do, if I'm in situations, perhaps where there are other women or where there are girls, where I think something is out of order, perhaps now, because I am more confident, then I need to be the one to challenge it, with them, for them, so that they might then be able to do that in another situation. And I always say the only thing that any of us have the power to change is ourselves. That's the only thing I have control over. I don't have control over you. I can't make you change. I do have control over myself, and as a Christian, I hope in my prayer, in being with God, to look at who I am and to look at how my words, my attitudes, the way I am, the way I see things, how I might live that differently, which may enable someone else to take on a different perspective. Yes, I will want justice. Yes, I want that person to know that what they said was out of order. I'm not just going to walk away from it. But actually, I have got the power to live differently, and to value myself. And that again is about being valued because I know that God loves me. It's not valued because I think I'm really important. So I think the Me Too whole thing was quite surprising in many ways, because it just went viral so quickly. And I think as I reflect on that, there were a number of things in that. One, I think it was recognising that this is something, a real significant issue in our world, that we don't yet have gender equality, and we're not yet living in ways that enable the flourishing of each other. I think it was allowing people to be vulnerable, women to dare to say, actually, this might not be just me and my fault and everything I've done. Actually, this is part of something bigger. So I want to be able to say, yeah, me too. And also, it was enabling a vulnerability which allowed people to say, sorry, I got this wrong, and the possibility of change. So for me, the key thing in Me Too was not about just pointing the finger at other people. It was saying, yeah, me too. Actually, we're all in this together in some way. And how can we reach a place where we can acknowledge our brokenness and say, actually, there needs to be justice in our world, and that includes gender justice. A psalm I love, which is a very well-known psalm, Psalm 139, which talks about God knowing us from even within our mother's womb, that God has looked on us, that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And so knowing that that I am made in God's image, with all my weaknesses and my flaws, that I am made in God's image, that's been a really important thing for me, that God knew me even before I was born. That's amazing. God's love and faithfulness to me doesn't change, and I can always fall flat on my face, and I can turn around and be forgiven and stand up again. So I think the confidence about being confident, actually, it's not confidence in myself, it's confident in God's love, actually. It's confident in God's calling. That's the confidence. That I can be utterly confident that God won't let me go. And I think that's what then gives me confidence to be the person I've been created to be. We've all got flaws, we've all got weaknesses, we're all broken, but we're also created in God's image, and we're beautiful. And it's discovering who I am with all my beauty and all my brokenness. Be confident that God has called me to this place. And that is what I've had to learn, that God has called me here.